So what about relationships? Everybody has the assumption that you cannot be a complete adult unless you got somebody to tickle your fancy. I would interject a new narrative that if you don't want to take on your partner's problems or give them yours, then you need to deal with these issues before you jump into somebody else with their own set of issues. It's time to start thinking about relationships in the same category as what the hell's going on with our country. Because when only half of marriages end in divorce, and the other half, they just mostly learn to tolerate each other. There's a very small percentage of people that are truly happy together after 20 or 30 or 40 years. There's a huge variety of reasons for that. And that's not what I'm trying to get into. But when the problems aren't once you're in the problems take on a whole new dimension once you're in a relationship with somebody else who's broken. And everybody's broken in some part. If they're successful in the world of finance, then they're lacking in humanity. They don't quite, if you've taken on business ethics as your personal morality in the way that you treat others, then that's going to bleed down into your personal life. So it's not going to allow you to experience the miracle of joining with another human without enmeshing them in all of those problems that you have, or allowing them to enmesh you into their problems. When I jumped out of high school, I was in a rush to procreate, get me a wife. Why? Because TV had put this idea of what a wife was, and society had, and that's what I needed. Somebody to serve me, somebody to take care of me. It was like, I need somebody who's going to give me sex, give me food, give me validation, give me love. So I went out and found a chick who thought I was good looking enough or whatever. And that didn't last very long because it wasn't done with the right frame of mind. And I slowed down a bit, but I duplicated it in my second marriage too. This time I stayed with her for 20 years. So, quite often, people have no idea what they're getting into. A lot of times, men who get a divorce, women who get a divorce, they don't learn from their experience. Now they have a whole new set of problems, including raising children with a broken household. And then they go and try and repeat the same thing with somebody else. They think, well, I still need somebody else to help me get through life. I just picked the wrong man the first time around. And or guys, they whether the old adage about trading in the older model for a newer one, that there's some truth in that, but that's because you're not in love with the person you're with. If when a guy marries a girl in your youth, she's beautiful and perfect. But men, they tend to hold that picture of their wife in their mind for the rest of their lives. That's the girl they fell in love with, and they never forget that girl is there unless she makes them or unless they choose to. It's when you forget about the person that you joined your life together with and start treating them as a problem to be dealt with in your life that, marriages fall apart. And the truth is, we feel like we need to rush out of high school as fast as we can to become an adult as fast as we can. And then we settle down, forget about, we come out of high school with ideals, but once those get crushed, then we settle for safety, for having all the components that we're told makes us an adult. A house, home ownership, a wife, children, pets. That's the American dream. But when we expect too much out of that American dream without putting enough into it. So, you have to be able to love the imperfections in your partner, as well as the things that make you happy about them. So when I got married, I was looking for the whole package. I wasn't looking for somebody to spend the rest of my life with. But once I made that decision, I stuck to it for a good 20 years. And, I don't blame her for leaving. And in fact, if she hadn't left me for a preacher, I never would have lost my faith and had such a crash in my life as I did. For me to actually examine my faith and my religion all the way back down to the roots. And the roots of that religion start with animal sacrifice. The idea that everybody commits a sin or two in their life. We commit sins every day. That's not the same as a crime, but we harm the people we love unintentionally. We do things without an evil intention that wind up having a bad result. And those can be fixed sometimes in a true spirit of forgiveness, two-way, but not from a position of defensiveness, not from a wounded position. Nobody can heal when you're feeling your wounds. So until you can put a comma before that belief that people have told you that you need to think this way, and question yourself, do I need to think this way? Do I need to think that I need a woman to complete me? Do I think that I need a man to complete me? Do I think that I need home ownership to belong in America? That's kind of our home culture, buying culture, is a desperate need for validation. In some ways, it makes economic sense to buy a house. But once you buy a house, you're stuck there for the rest of your life, unless you move on up and use it for a rent house, or sell it and get a different house, which has an incredible amount of cost involved in it, and people don't even think about that. I mean, sure, a house payment is cheaper than a rent payment, but that house payment never goes away. And the interest, the amount of principal that gets paid on it, especially at first, the amount of money spent in closing costs, and we've got lots of articles. We've been well educated on this. People should be able to know that if they can't live in a house for 5 years, they might as well just rent. 5 years or more. Otherwise, you're not really saving much money. Are you? Put a pencil to it. Figure it out. So until you can get past that wall of emotions that you're thrown into on a daily basis, you're not going to be able to think clearly, see clearly, or plan for the future clearly. How are you going to teach your kids to do that if you can't do it yourself? So it's great to have stories to tell your kids to promote your moral values. It's important to have conversations with your children as to the cautions that they need to learn to survive in our society. But if you don't start looking at your own beliefs and where they come from and where to go from here, then you're never going to have success with your kids, okay? Our only chance for immortality is our children's success. That's what we're given. From birth to death, our only immortality is the memories and the genetics that we pass on. And until we recognize the value of those, until we recognize that we need to give our children a real solid core set of values, not just one to protect them from the shark tank that our country has become, then we can start to advance as a civilization and move on into the next stage. Right now, these are just birth pains. and they're minor ones. These are just the beginning.